Well, believe it or not, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0 to start the season. How many people had that on their bingo card? Welcome to another episode of the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network and Steelers YouTube channel. My name is Chris Halicke. To my right, Greg Macafee. To my left, Matt Williamson. We are going to break down, just a little bit, break down the Steelers win over the Chargers, a pretty big win. I thought it was more convincing than the 20-10 score let on. Could have easily been 27-10. But then we're also going to take a look ahead to the Indianapolis Colts to this matchup Sunday. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good. How about yourself, Chris?
Doing good. I didn't have to go to the South Side. How are you doing, Matt?
I am fantastic. It's been a long week of podcasting, but it sure beats digging a ditch for a living, you know?
Heck yeah. That's the one thing that I always say about this is like some people are like, man, you work a lot of hours. Like how do you do it? I'm like, dude, this isn't work to me. I get to talk about football for a living. Like this is the life right here.
Not so bad. Yeah.
All right.
It's a fun team to talk about right now too.
Yes, absolutely. They're 3-0, 3-0 football team. Still can't make certain hierarchies in power rankings, but that's okay. Listen, just really quick to break this down. We don't spend too much time looking back, but you know, we thought that J.K. Dobbins was going to be a factor in the game, that the Chargers were going to try to run the ball with him. They did try. However, it was not as much of a factor as we thought. The Steelers clamped down on that big time. Offense took a while to get going. First half, 2-3 and outs to start things off. It just didn't quite get their mojo going. The Chargers scoring a touchdown, I nearly said San Diego. The Chargers scoring a touchdown kind of gave the offense a little kick in the rear end. They turned right back around, answered with a touchdown of their own, and then obviously they wore them down enough where in the fourth quarter, I think you kind of saw exactly what you would want the Steelers envision for it, what they want to do. Is that accurate, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that were extremely, extremely encouraging. Of course, centers around the defense, which I believe is the best in the league right now. And the yardage discrepancy and the dominance in the second half is something you rarely see, even if the scoreboard wasn't plus 40, in the second half. I mean, the game was not really even competitive in the second half. And then the other thing that I thought was extremely encouraging was the play of Justin Fields. And why I say that is because he won doing quarterback things. They made him play from the pocket and he delivered, and he threw the ball as well as I ever seen him with anticipation and timing and in rhythm. I thought that was a really exciting development.
Greg, what was a big takeaway for you in this game? I have one takeaway. I hope you don't take it from me. But what was your big takeaway from this game, this win over the Chargers?
I think it was just kind of how they wore the Chargers down. I mean, it's obviously, like you mentioned it in the beginning segment there, like the first two offensive drives of the game, you're like, oh no, like what are we looking at here? And then as the game goes on, they get stronger and the defense gets stronger. I think they held the Chargers to like -5 yards in the second half. And I mean, those last, like, I think 2 or 3 drives were just picture perfect on the offensive side. I mean, the touchdown to Calvin Austin, that last drive where they just kind of, 3 yards here, 14 yards here, 21 yards here from Najee. I mean, it was just like as the game got on, they got stronger and stronger. And I thought that was the most encouraging thing to see for me.
Yeah, the most encouraging thing, the Cam Hayward doubters need to step up and reveal themselves too. Yeah. Cam Hayward played the way that we are used to seeing him play.
Yeah,
against a pretty good offensive line too. I mean, very first snap of the game, he tossed Rashawn Slater aside like a rag doll, like it was nothing. And Rashawn Slater is a good tackle. That was a heck of a game for Cam Hayward. He was really modest about it whenever he spoke to the media, and I even kind of nudged him like wink, wink, elbow in the side, being like, you can't just say you tossed bodies around, because that's pretty much what he did. That really is a game changer for me on defense. because that just frees up the second and third levels to do so many more things when the defensive line. And when I say defensive line, I do include like interior defenders and edge rushers. So I'm including like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig in that group. But with the defensive line, the way that front, that first level of the defense is playing right now, the way they're dominating the line of scrimmage right now, it's just going to open up everything for that. I mean, Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson are standing around like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, they just don't have much. Like Peyton Wilson said, my job has never been easier right now because the defensive line isn't just taking up space. They're actually making plays by themselves. And so I do think that is the tone setter for this defense. I wrote a column earlier this week that defense can still win championships, that if you go through the history of this game, there have been multiple teams every decade that have won that had a number one defense. It hasn't happened this decade yet. Close. Chiefs had the number 2 defense last year, but still hasn't happened yet this decade. Could the Steelers be that team? I don't know. It depends also a lot on what happens on the offensive side of the ball. And Matt, you kind of brought it up there with Justin Fields, that his continued development, his continued growth week after week might be outside of the defense playing like lights out. We kind of expected that a little bit, but Justin Fields, Matt, I really want to get more, pick your brain on that, because that to me is the ultimate game changer, because if they got themselves a quarterback, that automatically makes them a contender in the AFC.
Yeah, and I'm not ready to go there. I'm not even ready to go that he should be the starter going forward. I'm just we may have even had this conversation last week, but I was asked many times, and I'm on a lot of outlets, so I do apologize.
Oh, yeah.
But last week at this time, I was asked, what would Justin Fields have to do against the Chargers for you to change your stance on him being the starter the minute Russell Wilson is available? And I frankly said, I can't really envision that scenario, because I want to see this offense with Wilson. I think he's the more professional quarterback to help win today. But I've now got on the fence a little bit about that. After seeing Wilson do quarterback stuff, I'm not ready to pull the plug. I'm not ready to anoint him a 17-game starter either. And I feel like the folks on the South Side might agree with me.
You see, that's kind of and I wrote about it yesterday. It's like, okay, we're seeing Justin take the things that he did very, very poorly in Chicago, and he's doing them well. He's sitting in the pocket. He's making throws. He's throwing with anticipation. He's not panicking. He's not being reckless. Like, those are the things that we saw in Chicago that made, like, it's no wonder why he turned the ball over 41 times and also ultimately was way too reliant on his legs. We're not seeing that yet. He had 1 scramble on 35 dropbacks last year, which is the lowest rate in his career. We're seeing him actually play quarterback right now. And if you can mold that, and the reason why I say what I said about Justin is if he can mold that, if he could take what he's doing and actually playing quarterback, playing within the structure of an offense, and then combine it with his ability to, oh, by the way, if I get through my second or third read and there's nobody there, I'm just going to tuck it and run. Like, that's the point in which I think Justin can become an absolute game changer, because we're talking like, who are other quarterbacks in the league that do that very well? There's really only one that comes to mind for me, and that's Lamar Jackson. In terms of guys who, like, okay, he can hit you over the top. He can hit you through the air, but you have to respect what he can do with his legs, because he's as dynamic as anybody in the league when it comes to running the ball.
The guy they're playing this week qualifies.
No, he's not. That's actually a good way to transition.
Segue here. I'm a professional.
Yeah. It's a good way to transition into this upcoming matchup against the Colts. Doesn't look great on paper for the Colts, but there are some concerns for me. We'll dig right into it here when we come back right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Alrighty, Steelers, Colts, 1 p.m. Indianapolis. DK and I will be on the scene for that for DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm excited about it. I love going to Indy. Indy's a fun town. I always love going there to cover the combine. Good food. It's just it's a fun town. It's a great place to go.
Perfect place for big events too.
It really is.
It is.
I mean,
just walk everywhere, right?
Yes, absolutely. Just love it. Okay. You mentioned it before, Greg, but I got to get your perspective on it too.
All right.
Anthony Richardson. It's not been the greatest start for him. It looked a lot more promising at the beginning of last year when he was a rookie. Wasn't necessarily a world beater, but had a passer rating in the mid 80s. Wasn't, wildly efficient, but you kind of saw the big play capability. Big play capability still kind of there, but he's completing 49% of his throws. What are you seeing from Anthony Richardson?
Well, I mean, we kind of touched, or Tomlin kind of touched on it earlier this week. Dude's got a strong arm, so you got to stay honest on the back end. You can't give up those big plays in the back. And TJ Watt was talking about it when we asked TJ Watt about it today. He said he's a big guy. He's tough to bring down. I think he's only got 4 sacks against him this year. We just got to pressure him, or the Steelers got to pressure him, move him out of the pocket, and kind of limit those big plays down. But I mean, he's a dynamic athlete. I think Terrell Austin called him an avatar of an athlete, which I thought was a pretty interesting quote earlier this week. But yeah, I mean, just kind of keep him contained, keep the big plays contained, and don't let him use his legs.
But Matt, I mean, the guy is missing throws that like college quarterbacks can't miss. I mean, it's not looking good. The tape does not look good to me at all.
So, Greg mentioned the athleticism and he's an avatar, and that's 100% true. I mean, by relative athletic score, he had the best combine of any quarterback in the history of the combine, speaking of Indianapolis. Now, the big concern with him after his rookie year was, how do we keep this guy on the field? Every game he played, he didn't finish as a rookie, and there wasn't many of them, and this before his season was inevitably ended. So I think they came into this year saying, hey, we paid Jonathan Taylor. We have a good line. We're not going to run you into the ground as our franchise quarterback. We need to protect your body to some degree. And they've taken it to an extreme, consider how good a runner he is. They don't call many designed runs. He doesn't have a high scramble rate. And yes, he has some wild throws. Go back to week 1, deep downfield that few would attempt or try. But he's a really poor passer of the football right now. I mean, rarely can you say this about NFL players and receivers, but he throws the ball too hard. I mean, like, people that are 3 yards downfield, he throws a 95-mile-an-hour fastball off their face mask or high and wide. I mean, I keep going back to tips and overthrows in this game with Minka looming and the speed behind him. He throws off platform all the time. You would think he'd be a good passer on the move. He really isn't. I mean, he does odd things with terrible fundamentals. So he has a lot of work to do, but he's dangerous.
Yes, he can be for sure. And the one thing that I noticed, because the Steelers don't blitz very often, they have one of the lowest blitz rates in the league. However, Anthony Richardson has, I think, a passer rating in the 40s against the blitz this year. And so I wonder, like, are the Steelers going to blitz more often to try to create pressure, to try to force him into making stupid throws? Or just with the way he's playing, just let him make stupid throws on his own. Let's have 7 guys back in coverage instead of 6. I don't know, but
especially their center and right tackle don't play.
Right, because Ryan Kelly, their center, and I forget their right tackle's name, but they're both questionable for the game. They did not practice a lot this week, so it is curious, and that kind of leads me into the strength of the offense, which is Jonathan Taylor and their offensive line. When healthy, they have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in football. And Jonathan Taylor, back in 2021, was a runner-up Offensive Player of the Year. Just a phenomenal running back, but he hasn't stayed healthy the past 2 seasons. But we're seeing, like, if you look at the tape, he still looks like the same guy that won the rushing title in 2021. He still is very, very patient. He has an amazing change of direction, his acceleration to be able to kind of almost Le'Veon Bell type of kind of wait, put a foot in the ground and go. Like he has that capability of hurting, running. Greg, you were there today, and you've heard the defense talk about it. What is a way that this defense, because this is not J.K. Dobbins, like how does the defense kind of keep a lid on Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking to we asked TJ about it today, and he said he can, as soon as he hits the hole, he's going to be gone. He's a slasher. He can find holes. So you got to get guys to the ball. You got to get guys to the ball. You got to fill holes, not let him kind of blow through them. And because as soon as he gets open space, he's going to be gone. They said TJ said they were watching tape of the Green Bay game, and it seemed like he'd be bottled up in the backfield, and 2 seconds later, he's 10 yards down the sideline. So you got to get Hatch to the ball and kind of keep him contained as much as you can, basically.
One stat that I think you've brought this up when we talked, Matt, when we weren't recording a podcast. Time of possession for the Colts, is dead last in the NFL, and not only dead last, but I mean it's like barely over 21 minutes, like 21 and a half minutes a game.
The 31st best team is 3 minutes better.
Yeah, I know. It's Atlanta. Yeah. It's bad. It's terrible time of, but at the same time, they are third in yards per play.
They're explosive. That's what scares me more than anything about this game is the explosiveness of their offense.
Right. Yeah. And so, but it really does just seem that it is literally like, in terms of, if you would put a baseball term on it, it is they're hitting a home, or they're hitting a home run, or they're striking out. And that's pretty much because they're not holding on to the football. And that's going to tire out the defense. And that really makes me wonder because, okay, to kind of transition to the offensive side of the ball for the Steelers against this Indianapolis defense, I kind of wonder how, is it just going to be another situation in which they're going to be like, okay, we're just going to hold on to the football and kind of do what they did against the Chargers, and we'll just pound them into submission. And then by the time the third and fourth quarter roll around, they're going to be so tired because their offense doesn't hold on to the ball that we're just going to be able to have our will with them. Is that kind of the way it's going to go, Matt, or do you kind of see them trying to open things up a little bit more?
Well, they're at DeForest Buckner's been out for a while. Kwity Paye is an emerging player. He's out for this game. Moore, their best corner / slot guy, is out for this game. And so for Steelers.com, Rob King and Dale Lawley and I do this video, and we do a Zoom beforehand. And it's always, we pick our favorite matchup. And I always have like 6 of them to pick, to whittle down into 3. And when the Steelers had the ball, I had none in this game. Like, there aren't interesting players. I mean, I think Latu is a really intriguing first-round pick who I loved coming out of UCLA, and he kind of had his coming out party. But they were hideous against the run 2 weeks in a row when Green Bay had Willis at quarterback. And then because Chicago can't run on anybody, they were hideous against the pass the next week. And they really don't have good players. And worse, their scheme is the most generic in the league. I mean, they are old school Legion of Boom, cover 3, time and time again, which isn't bad if you have Earl Thomas and Sherman and Averill and Wagner, blah, blah, blah. And they have none of that. I mean, I think their defense is unbelievably easy to play against. Tight ends are putting up huge numbers. I think Freiermuth feasts. I don't know what they do about Pickens because they don't have anybody that can match up with him one-on-one. And I think the Steelers will run on them. So that side of the ball is hard for me to comment on because I don't know where the Colts win.
Greg, what do you think about the Steelers offense versus the Colts? Because I kind of have similar concerns to Matt. I'll bring them up here in a second, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on this too. Like, how does this offense fare against the Colts defense? Because it just doesn't seem like it's if there's going to be a game in which the Steelers kind of pop off, it could be this one.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of said it in my prediction, which will go out later today. I think this is the game that the dam breaks fully. Like, it, floods happen in Indianapolis, and I mean, with all the injuries that the Colts have and everything like that, I think it just amounts to the Steelers kind of having one of those games that everyone's been looking for. Justin Fields finds George Pickens consistently, Freiermuth gets involved, and they run the ball pretty consistently. I mean, I think it's something, maybe they go ahead early and they possibly cruise. I don't know. I think it's just one of those games where they kind of break off.
I mean, of course, bad things could happen. Fumble snaps.
Yes, exactly.
Fields takes 5 sacks, throws 2 picks, and is a fumble. I'm not just blaming him, but I'm just, that could happen and you could lose. But on paper, it's a very attackable defense.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to, because I'm as I was going through like all the different numbers and stats because, you know, you just do all your homework on teams. And Matt, you're kind of the person that I would want to ask this because you talk about cover 3, you talk about like, you know, Colts run cover 3. They are primarily a zone defense.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers are similar in that regard. They run a lot of cover 3. They run a lot of zone coverages. Is it really just a question of personnel? Is it also the way that they disguise? Like, do the Steelers just do that much better in disguising coverages over the Colts? Like, what are some of the differences whenever you look at, okay, if I just look at the numbers and I see, oh, wow, both the Steelers and Colts are similar in their cover 3 usage and similar in their zone usage. What are the differences in why the Steelers defense is so good and why the Colts defense can be so attackable?
The super low hanging fruit is the Steelers have way better players. I mean, and I don't think the Steelers are nearly as simplistic schematically either. You know, like, yes, they have single high a lot. Mm-hmm. And some of the numbers that people cite with coverages, I half believe, you know, because if you ask Terrell Austin, was that pure cover 3 old school Legion of Boom? He'd be like, no, we had a wrinkle to it. And we weren't just spot dropping and everyone knows where everyone's going to be, you know, rush 4. So the short answer is the players are way better. I mean, if you're going to play the single high safety, I want it to be Minka. If I'm going to rush 4, I want it to be Watt and Highsmith and Cam. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the linebacker speed is night and day. I mean, I also think the Steelers are much, much more man coverage capable. Whether they've had to do it or not is a different question.
Right. Yeah. And that's why, like, whenever I see like the cover 3 usage and stuff like that, I'm like, well, I know that Porter definitely follows her. He's not a corner that just drops back into okay, this is my deep
like
third.
Richard Sherman was a left corner. You know what I mean? Yeah. You played one side.
Yeah.
That's not what happens here.
I get that. And so I just wanted to kind of help illustrate that for if anybody else sees, well, the Steelers run similar things. I want to get some more of that. And I do think like, they just have better players. A really, really interesting
quick story. Like when I was with the Browns, Butch Davis was our head coach.
Yeah.
And he was the head coach of the U. You guys are probably too young to remember. But when the U was the U, they ran a 4-3 stack and they could put up on the scoreboard what defense they're running. Well, they had first round picks at every position. It didn't make a difference. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The Colts don't.
Yeah. That is very, very true. Personnel matters 100%.
Yeah.
A really interesting question because I mentioned it earlier when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Minka hasn't really yet made the splash plays yet. Is this the game that he finally gets his first interception? Do you think, not that this game will only be, you know, decided in a win if he gets an interception, but do you see this as a game in which he could really kind of feast a little bit on Anthony Richardson's? Either one of you can answer. Is this a game in which Anthony Richardson could be?
Greg, take it away.
I was about to give it to you, Matt.
All right, I'll take it. The beauty of him, or so many beautiful things about him, but we're seeing so much too high safety in the league. He kind of does the work of 2 and is a single middle defender, which allows you more options. You can play your corners closer. You can put 8 in the box, which obviously is going to be a key to this running attack and their line. But I mentioned it earlier. I mean, tips and overthrows are Anthony Richardson's specialties, and who's going to loom when that ball hangs in the air more than Minka. And one thing I've been saying a lot this year is everyone gave the Steelers after week 1 such a hard time. You know, you didn't throw in the middle of the field. You're afraid of those 2 safeties. I'm like, watch the Steeler tape. It's the same thing against every Steeler opponent. They shy away from Minka. You don't throw the ball to good players.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, that is the. I remember having a conversation with a family member of mine this week, and they're like, what's Minka doing?" I'm like, not letting the offense take the top off.
right.
Like they don't want to throw it down there because they don't want him to intercept it. So
one thing I say about him a lot is I use a hockey analogy. I mean, DK obviously does a lot of hockey stuff. He's like a great goalie. That I'm older than you guys. It allows Paul Coffey to go be an offensive defenseman, you know what I mean. Like, go rush up field. If they get behind you, I'll make the save. You guys can all be aggressive. You know that was Earl Thomas.
Yeah. All right.
Ed
so, yes, for sure. Let's get into our predictions for the game. The Steelers are, I think, favored by 1.5. Which to me is kind of shocking. I don't quite get that really at all. I understand the concerns about the offense. If you look at the offense on paper in terms of numbers, it's not anything that's jumping off the page at you. But with the way that the Colts have played thus far, with the way that they are not holding on to the football and kind of leaving their defense out to dry, I just don't see a point. I thought a 1.5 was kind of silly. But Greg, I'll kick it to you first. Prediction for this game: do the Steelers win, and if they win, by how much?
Yeah, I mean, I said a little bit earlier, I think this is the game that the offense kind of finds its rhythm and pops off. I predicted 30-10. I don't know if that's a little high on the Colts side either. I don't know if they find the end zone. But I guess we'll see. But I think this is the game where the offense just kind of finds a rhythm and, you know, scores a ton of points. George Pickens finds the end zone, things of that nature. So yeah, I got 30-10.
All right, Matt, what do you got for this game?
I have the Steelers winning 23-13. I am worried about some explosives from the Colts offense.
Yeah.
Their pass catchers are good. Their line is good. Richardson can make a play. I mean, there's certainly talent there, and Taylor's one of the best players on the field without question. But I also think that, as we talked about, the Steeler offense, they're not a juggernaut, but that defense is ripe for the picking. And sometimes this time of year, though, I have a hard time saying that's a 4-0 team, or the Bengals are 0-4, or the Ravens are 1-3. Like, that just doesn't sit right, but I'd be shocked if they lost this game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My prediction for this game is 27-10. I'm going with the score that it probably should have been against the Chargers if they, you know, didn't do the whole like sportsman-like kneel down at the 1 yard line. But no, I say 27-10. I do think the offense has their best game of the season. I do think that it might be a little bit of a slower start, but I know they've been really emphasizing a faster start, and they had a fast start against the Colts last year, so maybe they could do the same thing this year. Either way, I still think 27 points is pretty good. I'm not quite ready to go like, oh, they're going to put up a 30 spot or anything like that. And then the 10, I definitely have the Colts at least scoring a touchdown just because of the ability to make a play downfield every now and then. I do think that they'll at least get in the end zone once. It could be like a 75-yard touchdown pass or something along those lines, and then the offense might be anemic for the rest of the game and barely squeak out a field goal. So, yeah, I'm going 27-10 as my prediction. I do think that the Steelers go 4-0. And Matt, do you have the number of what the percentages of teams that are start 4-0 and make the playoffs?
I do. Let me just scroll up here on my handy dandy document.
I figured you had that. I don't have it. I'm sure it's a very, very high number.
84% go to the playoffs. 65% win their division. And this might sound small, but 12.6% win the Super Bowl. That's a very high percentage.
That is a very high percentage.
Yeah.
Now, I definitely don't. I'm not going to be saying to go place your bets if the Steelers go 4-0 to go ahead and start betting them to win the Super Bowl. But to put it kind of in a different perspective, that they start 4-0, they could pretty much play 500 ball the rest of the way and finish 11-6.
I mean, there's no way they're going to go 0-6 in the division.
Right.
You're like,
yeah.
I'll bet everything I have they win between 2 and 5 games in the division.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
you go 500 the rest of the way. You can't go exactly 500 because it was a 17-game season. But if even if you go one game under 500, you're 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you could have a bad month that Watt's out or whatever,
yeah,
and go 1-3 that month and still weather it. You know,
yeah, a 4-0 start is huge for this team. I'm not going to say it guarantees a playoff spot. It definitely starts putting playoffs in your head. And at least at that point, it's like, okay, now October, November, and December are about getting ready for the playoffs at that point. Mm-hmm. And that's what a 4-0 start would do for you. So,
nice place to be.
Yes, absolutely. All right. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I really hope you guys enjoy this preview. Get you ready for kickoff on Sunday. I'm excited about it. Like I said before at the beginning of the show, love going to Indy. Great time. And I'm looking forward to our show next week, in which we will break this down and then preview the Cowboys, who are also a team that is dealing with some injuries now.
To say the least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that could be even a winnable game. If the Steelers were to get out of Indianapolis with a win, that could be even bigger for this team. So Very, very interesting. But thank you guys for joining. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you guys on the flippity flip. Have a great weekend.
See you later.